Just when you think it can't get any more crazy, it gets crazier. That is how I feel about this market. It just keeps on getting more and more crazy. Yesterday, the rally was supposedly around, and let's just focus on this for a second because we've had a dramatic move in the market the last 2 days, particularly the NASDAQ. Yesterday, the rally was supposedly on the debt ceiling being resolved. However, that was the base case. That is the assumed situation. The U.S. has never defaulted on its debt. It is 76 times raised the debt ceiling. And the market didn't have a panic around the debt ceiling. So why did we give all that back? Then it seemed that it was the same thing again today. I can't figure it out. We got, some warmer economic data. Interest rates went up. The market initially went down, and then it exploded. This wasn't a subtle move. We're not subtly green here. We've had 2 back-to-back absolute explosions in the market, in the most expensive areas of the market. It's quite puzzling to me. Because when you look at the fundamentals, they're not very strong. Target, yesterday, they had their earnings. And this is just shows you how crazy the market is right now, unfortunately. They were up after the earnings, despite the fact that they up slightly after being down in the pre-market. They finished the day up and traded up during the regular session. Despite the fact that they said April was weaker than March, May was weaker than April, and they expect things to continue to get weaker. And I believe they lowered guidance for the full year. So for some reason, I guess maybe something Walmart said prompted the stock to be down over 4% today when it reported earnings yesterday before the open. Extremely strange. And that's not, extremely strange is not, proper market analysis of trying to value a business and decide whether or not to participate in owning that business or participate against that valuation. But that's what's going on right now. It's just totally crazy the past few days. And it really makes you, as a bear, as somebody who's bearish on this market, I am bearish on this market, I'm bearish on this economy as well, question things. Not because I think the fundamentals are any different, but, everything I thought might hold is not holding. The trading range broken today. So I have to simply, just question it. It's crazy. It's making me more fearful about what can happen next. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Tomorrow is, and has been, in my opinion, the biggest day of the week. We have Powell and Bernanke talking. I talked about that in the last couple videos. That is something that I don't believe has happened in a very long time, if not ever. The former Fed chair during the great financial crisis, and Jerome Powell, you know who he is, doing a talk tomorrow. And after the last FOMC meeting, Bullard was the first one to follow up. Williams does talk tomorrow morning, New York Fed president, who has become increasingly more hawkish, said he would be open to additional rate increases. But Bullard spoke again today. So the tilt is on the Fed being hawkish. And so much of the market for all this year has been on notions like Fed pivot, cutting interest rates, things like that, recession, weird things. The stock market, particularly tech, has rallied since the banking crisis because yields fell. And it doesn't want to do the opposite. It doesn't want to give that back. So obviously, yields and stocks don't have a perfect correlation. They are not one for one. Sometimes it does take stocks a little bit of time to react to the move in interest rates because the stock market obviously doesn't believe interest rates. The market in general doesn't believe interest rates. Still not a likely outcome, even though it's increasing, for a rate hike at the next meeting. Still less likely that we get one, even though the talk out of the Fed is very fast in the last week, moving us towards that. If you go off of what the Fed, who's the one who makes the decision, is saying, it sure sounds like we're getting a rate increase. Jefferson today barely talked about CPI, spent all of his time talking about, services, inflation, ex housing, core CPI. These are the areas of CPI that aren't moving, and they haven't moved all year. So it's a very puzzling picture because the fundamentals tell us one thing, and the price action is completely disregarding that. Even Elon talking about how Tesla stock is going to have a rough year. The economy is going to have a rough year, and that you should buy it when it's low. And he expects it to go low. Meta executives selling over $10 million worth of stock in the past week, or this week actually. It's just bizarre. It's just bizarre. I simply do not have an explanation for the past 2 days. It's that simple to me. I don't have an explanation to what's occurring. Like I said, it's apparently on the debt ceiling, but there was no give back or fear around the debt ceiling. That never happened. That doesn't happen. The catalyst for the debt ceiling was skewed to the downside. If we didn't do something to raise the debt limit, then something would happen. But it's never happened before. It's always been the much more likely outcome that they would agree to a deal. So it's just extremely puzzling. And I think it's, I just think it's simply crazy. That's what I think today's move is. I think it's people looking at a headline, grasping at air, and it's hard to play air. It's hard to play air. And that's unfortunate because the market should be moving on fundamentals. That's what should be happening. That's what we've seen happen with PBF recently. That's what should be happening, but it is not happening. So very difficult right now. I wish I could give you some more actual meat today. I feel like I'm not giving you any meat. I'm kind of giving you air. But that's what this market feels like to me the past 2 days. Is that a good thing for people on the downside? Maybe. But it's really gonna come down to what Powell and Bernanke say tomorrow. It could be a nothing burger. That's totally possible. But it will be interesting nonetheless. The market is quite interesting nonetheless. Interest rates are rising. Do with that what you will. We'll see what happens. That's today's video. And until next time, peace out.